And to talk more about that, I'm joined by TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, on the show. Thank you, Ambassador Raghavan, for joining me on the show. Why are things going south for Pakistan when it comes to Afghanistan? One would have assumed that the Taliban were their creation, therefore they would owe loyalties to Pakistan and act in their interest.
Well, that is the irony of the situation and the dilemma which the Pakistani state faces, because they supported the Taliban in its comeback to power in Afghanistan in every possible way, on the assumption that the Taliban, once in power, would play ball with it. That assumption has been comprehensively belied. And to a large extent, that is because of an autonomous factor that has emerged over the past 15-20 years, which is in the form of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. This is an offshoot of the Taliban, but it operates primarily in Pakistani territory. And the victory of the Taliban in Afghanistan has acted as a kind of template for the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Their point is that if the Taliban can establish an Islamic emirate in Afghanistan, why cannot we establish a similar emirate in the tribal areas of Pakistan? So this therefore becomes the principal contradiction between this offshoot of the Taliban and the Pakistani state. And the Pakistani state really has no effective way of dealing with it, because the Taliban is also closely tied to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan.
Okay. No, but does the TTP really listen to the Taliban? Because they are operating out of their country. The Pakistan accuses Afghanistan of providing them sanctuary, of they having their training facilities there. So does the TTP enjoy a full logistical, financial support from the Taliban government or the Afghan Taliban?
It's very difficult to say, but certainly it gets some measure of support, and it has a certain capacity to operate in sanctuaries in Afghanistan also. But their principal basis of support is in the tribal areas of Pakistan itself.
Okay.
And my own impression is, although views differ on this, my own impression is that the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is to some extent an autonomous force, and it will not listen entirely to what the Taliban says. So I think that is the real issue which the government of Pakistan faces, that it has an expectation from the Taliban in Afghanistan, which the Taliban may not have the capacity to fulfill, or may be asking for a price which is difficult for the Pakistani government to pay.
Okay. Ambassador, then let me understand from you that if the TTP is autonomous, they don't listen to the Afghan Taliban, Pakistan is one of the few countries that diplomatically recognizes the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan. They are one of the handful countries which have diplomatic relations, has embassies in each other's countries. Then isn't it in the interest of the Afghan Taliban that if the Pakistan army wants to eliminate them, let them do so? Why have they vowed retaliation?
Well, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan over the years extended a great deal of support to the Taliban in Afghanistan. Let's not forget that. There are very close fraternal relations between the two organizations. To some extent, they often come from members of the same tribe. Part of the tribe may be in Afghanistan, the other part may be in Pakistan. So there are very close links, and it may not be easy for the Taliban to suddenly dissociate itself from the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The second reason to remember is that the Taliban does have a measure of sympathy for the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan's demands, because if the TTP says that we want to set up an Islamic emirate, or we want to have much greater autonomy in the tribal areas of Pakistan, the Taliban itself themselves see nothing wrong with this demand.
Are you then saying, Ambassador, that it suits the Afghan Taliban to have a strategic depth inside the tribal areas of Pakistan, and that is why they let them operate.
Well, it's not just the Taliban. See, no government or no regime in Afghanistan to date has entirely recognized the Durand line, which separates the two countries.
Right.
And they see the issue as one of the same tribe being divided by an artificial boundary. And their advice, therefore, to the government of Pakistan is that this is not a security issue, this is a political issue, and it's a social issue, and you should deal with it politically rather than applying force. You should talk to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The problem which the government of Pakistan faces is that they are the subject of a large number of attacks which are being carried out by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and to some extent they are a victim of their own policies to date, which is of encouraging extremist groups, or which of having links with extremist groups and using them as instruments of state policy. And now the problem is a familiar one, that those groups whom they once encouraged have turned against them.
Okay. Ambassador, don't you find this really interesting that, after the coming in of Taliban or the storming of the Taliban in Kabul, there were fears that there could be sanctuaries provided to these extremist elements and they could put the pressure on Kashmir. Interestingly, that hasn't really happened that much. It's in fact become a headache for those who, put them in their madrasas, gave them logistical and financial support.
Well, this was the grave error of judgment of the government of Pakistan, and they had received enough warnings about this. Many people had counseled them about this in Pakistan itself, but driven by a certain securitized perspective of how to conduct foreign policy, they continued on that policy and now are having to pay the cost for it.
All right. We'll leave it there. Ambassador T.C. Raghavan, thank you very much for joining and lending us your insights. Thank you.